Hi guys, so today we have Sahaj Oberoi with us who will be sharing his interview experience at ZS Associates for the BTSA role. Okay, so he'll be sharing various tips and tricks and how he had prepared for the same role. So he'll be sharing all that stuff and all his experience for the interview. So Sahaj, would you like to add something to this?
All right, so first of all, thanks a lot, Sahaj, for having me here and introducing me. And I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really hoping that this session or this podcast will really help a lot of people who are aspiring to be a ZSer in future. So yeah, let's just start.
Right, absolutely. I totally hope that a lot of viewers who watch this video really become a ZSer someday. So, starting with the questions now, what is BTSA? Like, I know you are employed as a BTSA intern, but what is this role really? Could you brief up about the role, please?
Okay, so I am selected as a BTSA intern. So it's basically Business Technology Solutions Associate. So what is this role, right? So the name is obviously not so clear, like what this role would be about. So the role is mainly related to data mining and business intelligence. So the main focus is basically business intelligence, and this is like an umbrella term. BTSA is an umbrella term. Further, when you join, you get different roles depending upon the project you are
Okay.
staffed at.
All right, so the role surely sounds interesting. Like this business intelligence field is a bit different
Mm-hmm.
from, the general fields that people apply for as a computer science graduate or something like that. So now moving on to the interview, right? So what was your first round about?
Okay, so talking about the first round, so the first round was the aptitude round for me. So in that round, there were approximately 40 questions that we had to solve in about 45 minutes. And the aptitude round consisted of normal logical reasoning questions, quant questions, and few data interpretation as well as SQL questions also. And the level of the aptitude round, in my opinion, was pretty simple. You can say most of the questions were simple only. It's just that the time constraint was, the main issue for me. Like the time was really less considering the amount of questions. So the main tip for this round would be to be very fast with your calculations and obviously maintaining the accuracy. So that is my recommendation to you all, that you just maintain your speed, and I don't think you really need a lot of practice for just clearing the aptitude round. If you are just decent with aptitude round, and maybe if you are too slow, then you might try to improve your speed. That would be my only tip for this round. But yeah, you have to maintain your speed and accuracy. That's the main point for the aptitude round. Otherwise, the level of this round is pretty simple. Not many tough questions will be asked to you, and the SQL and data interpretation questions are also pretty simple.
Okay, so the overall level of the aptitude round, according to you, was relatively simple. It's just that you have to be very fast with it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the next round. So what was your second round about?
So in the second round, basically, um, first of all, they asked me if I am, comfortable with SQL and how much SQL I know. So I just told them that I am pretty decent with it, and then he asked few basic theoretical questions, like 1 2 theoretical questions related to SQL, and later he gave me two SQL queries. So in the first SQL query, I actually kind of forgot the syntax for a particular thing, and I mentioned that to him that I am unable to recall the syntax, but I know the proper logic how this SQL query can be, written, and I sort of explained the algorithm, what process, like what I am thinking, how what is my basically the process that I would be following if I knew the syntax. So I explained that properly to him,
Right.
and then he just said that okay, let me give you another SQL query. So he just moved on to another SQL query, and that one was also like a decent level SQL query, but like beforehand I didn't know much SQL, like I wasn't very strong with SQL. But yeah, especially for ZS interview and like cracking for ZS, I prepared a lot for SQL. I watched tutorials on YouTube. I solved few questions on HackerRank as well to practice SQL. So yeah, that really helped me a lot. So I could easily solve the second SQL query, and then he asked me questions like, "Do you think it is really correct?" And then I obviously said yes, and I explained the whole query, like what is this part doing, what is this part doing, and what he was demanding as an output, and how my query is also providing the same solution. So I explained all that to him, and he seemed that he was satisfied. So he asked another one or two questions about SQL, a very common SQL question. I would not like to just openly tell the exact questions, but I would like to just tell the structure of the whole interview.
Okay.
So he asked me one or two common interview questions and SQL questions, and then he later asked me with which programming language I was comfortable with and whether I knew OOPS concept or not. So I told him that I knew OOPS concept and I was comfortable with Python. So he asked me 2-3 questions related to Python, and he also asked me 2-3 questions related to normal OOPS concept. So that those questions were really basic. If you are if you are even decent with Python and you have basic knowledge of OOPS, then you could easily answer those questions. So those were really simple ones. And after the OOPS concept and Python questions, he moved on to SDLC. So he asked me little about SDLC. That's the software development lifecycle. So he asked me one or two questions about it, and then the interview was finished. So it took approximately 35 minutes for the whole interview for the second round. But yeah, it was I could answer most of the questions, I feel. So I did pretty decent in that round, and I was confident enough. And I think the main key point that you have to showcase is that you are confident with whatever you are answering. Okay, so that's key point in my opinion. And if you explain everything to them properly, it would show that you have the good knowledge and you are also able to explain things to them. So that would be a plus point in my opinion. Then later I cleared this round as well, and then there was the third round.
All right, so that really sounds like a round full of questions. So moving on to the next round. So was it the final round, or you had a lot of other rounds as well?
All right, so we were told by our college that the third round would be the final round, and mostly I guess they conduct 5 rounds in total in other colleges and all. But I guess they were, having an immediate hiring process, so they had only 3 rounds with us. We were expecting a normal HR round, but it wasn't really like that. To me, at least, it was completely technical round, honestly. Like apart from one question which we'll be discussing later, the whole final round was also a technical round for me.
All right, so that's a bit sad that you didn't really, have a proper HR round, but never mind. So, what were the questions that were asked to you in the next round?
Alright, in both the interviews, the first question was just to introduce yourself, right? That's the most common question that you are asked. So I introduced myself, then he again asked me if I was comfortable with SQL. He gave me a question, a difficult SQL query to be honest, and I, gathered all my knowledge that I knew, and I tried to explain the best possible thing I could make out of all the knowledge I had. It was, to be honest, like one of the most difficult queries I've ever seen, honestly. And still, I gathered all my knowledge and gave as good possible answer as I could. And he found that feasible. He said that this problem could be solved with that approach, and he then asked me to think of another approach for the same, and I really couldn't think of any other approach. Even this approach that I told him, even that was really very difficult for me to come up with. And later, like, he gave another SQL query, and after that he then asked me if I was aware about a particular algorithm. So it was pretty simple. If even if you are in first year, you will be probably taught that in in C or C++ language. So it was that simple algorithm. He asked about me that, and it really took a bit of time for me to recall it, because I wasn't really expecting a DSA question in a ZS interview, because it's mostly around data oriented. So you were expected that you would be asked about SQL mostly, and maybe Python also. But I didn't really expect a proper DSA question. So after he asked me about that algorithm, I told him that algorithm. So after that, he completely went into the time complexity analysis. So yeah, that was a bit unexpected, but yeah, I was pretty decent with finding out the complexity of algorithms. So I could write the algorithm, and then obviously, since I had decent knowledge about complexity analysis, so yeah, I was able to answer all of the questions that he asked me about the best case, worst case, and the average case about that algorithm. So again, this was really very unexpected for me. And like seriously, I asked many other friends also if they were asked anything related to DSA, even a single question, even a very basic question. So they all declined. So yeah, I guess I was one of the only ones who got asked for a DSA question. But yeah, it was pretty simple. And if you are decent with time complexity analysis, which is also a not so difficult thing, so yeah, you could easily answer that question. And then later he asked few very basic questions about cloud. I didn't have a very in-depth knowledge about cloud, but just basic questions. So after answering them, he just asked me about why I wanted to join ZS. So this was like really a question that I had prepared very well even before the second round. That was the first interview round. So I was very well prepared with this question. So I searched their whole website properly. I wanted to find out the reasons why, like if they asked me this question, so I wanted to find out some things which I could resonate with, or which I really like about ZS, so that when they ask me this question, so I can really show that I have researched about this company, and I am able to find some things which are resonating with my principles or beliefs, or basically some things which I really like about them, you can say, in general. So yeah, I was prepared well for this question, and I answered this very confidently and very
Right,
fluently.
right, right.
So yeah, that's how this interview ended.
Okay, so apparently you had a pretty smooth interview process. Like throughout the three rounds, you had a pretty smooth ride and journey, to become a ZSer, I guess.
Honestly, the start of this interview was very, very tough for me. It was really very like it made me really nervous, because my interview was at 12:30 p.m. I woke up around 11, and I switched on my laptop around 12:10. Okay, and I had just opened my Chrome and the email where the link of the Zoom link basically was provided to me. So I had opened that email also. I had thought that I would open the link just 5 minutes before the interview, right? So when I opened the link, the Zoom wasn't opening. First of all, like my Chrome browser completely froze, and like I couldn't really do anything at all in my PC. The whole computer system, my whole laptop just froze. Okay, so that was really very frustrating. It really made me very nervous, because I had my interview in like 5-6 minutes or so. And even that was a very a very unique experience, I would say,
Yeah.
because I never faced such issue.
All right. So, would you like to, suggest something if someone else was going through the same thing, like some technical issue due to which he is unable to join the meeting or basically join the interview? So, would you suggest anything?
Obviously, many of you might also be able to face something similar to this in your interviews, because most of the interviews nowadays are going online. So yeah, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
absolutely.
if you ever face this thing, just try to relax. I know it's very, very difficult. I have been through it myself, But what I did was I just tried to relax myself. All that I was thinking was that I have to give the interview and I have to be confident. I have to hide my nervousness. So as soon as the time was 12:30, I opened the link through my mobile. I explained the interviewer that this was the issue coming from my laptop, and if it was possible for me to give the interview through my mobile, if he is okay with it, then it would be really great. So he understood my problem, but still, even though he understood my problem, my hands were a bit shaky because I was really very nervous, and the whole starting of the interview was so negative that obviously a person would be negative before an interview if such an incident happens. So yeah, but either way, he asked me my introduction and then he asked me another SQL query, which distracted me kind of, because when he asked me the SQL query, as I earlier told you, I had to think a lot about every concept that I already knew about SQL, right? So that made me think into some different direction, and it kind of distracted me. And also I was I was thinking initially when I was about to join the meeting, ZS is obviously a great company and I don't want to miss this opportunity just because my laptop froze. I don't want that to be a reason for me failing this interview. So I gave this interview, and yeah, here we are, giving this podcast, helping other people becoming ZSers. So yeah.
Okay, so how was your overall experience, interviewing for ZS?
It was overall a very great experience. The people who took the interview were also great. And yeah, it was an amazing experience.
That's really great. So, would you like to give some tips and tricks which you had followed, or you would like to suggest to the people who are, aspiring ZSers?
Yeah, so talking about the tips for each round, like what are the things that I followed for each round. So for the very first round, which was the aptitude round, right? So my English is, I would say, decent. Okay, so I was confident that I don't really need practice for English. I usually am able to solve most of the English questions myself. I am not so good with the vocabulary, so I didn't have much issue with English. And coming on to the logical reasoning and quant, so I didn't really practice them as well because I have been able to score decent marks in co-cubes and other exams like that. So those exams basically, and other company exams also, made me give that little bit of confidence that yeah, I can solve the aptitude without giving some extra practice to that. Either way, if you want to solve if you want to improve your speed or something like that, then you can search for ZS aptitude rounds, and you can generally just solve aptitude questions yourself and just try to improve your speed. That would be the main thing in my opinion. Then again, obviously you had few SQL questions as well, so for that obviously you just need to know basics of SQL. That would be it for the aptitude round at least. Okay, and for the data interpretation questions, those are also really simple, so I don't think you really need much practice for that. I think anyone could easily solve those questions. So the first round is done. So talking about the interview round, so I did tell you about the questions that were asked from me, right? But others were also asked few different questions. Like many of the many of my friends were asked various HR puzzles in the second round and even in the third round. So few of my friends, like 2-3 of my friends, just were asked only the HR questions in the final round. Okay, so they were like asked about the introduction. They were asked HR puzzles, situational questions. So they were only asked these questions, and few of the other people in the second round, they were also again asked about SQL. So SQL was permanent, like SQL was something that was asked to everyone. Okay, and apart from that, few HR puzzles. Okay, so you should be you should check out few HR puzzles. So like in my case, I searched on YouTube, like I watched a 50-minute or so video on YouTube, and I also saw some of the questions on Geeks for Geeks website. So they have a list of 40-50 puzzles. So even if you watch, even if you read about or try to solve 20 of them, I guess that would give you enough idea to at least get a better thinking about how you can approach such questions in the interview. Okay, so that would be it for the HR puzzles point of view. Um, Now talking about the situational questions, so I'll try to put a link in the description of a particular PDF, which is a decent PDF in which you have few situational questions or few HR questions. Yeah, and yeah, DS is famous for asking guesstimates as well. So 2-3 friends of mine were also asked very basic guesstimates. So if you want to prepare for guesstimates, you can simply look up on YouTube. There are various videos on guesstimates on YouTube. So yeah, you can just watch, I guess, 10 of them, and that would give you a basic idea like how you should basically approach guesstimate. So that would give you the basic idea. And I guess that's it for this session from my side, at least. If you have any other question, then obviously feel free to ask.
Right. Thanks a lot for, just summarizing all the tips and the preparation techniques that you followed for all the rounds. And yeah, I would still like to ask a question or two, that how has your experience been so far at ZS?
Okay, so the experience of ZS so far has been really good. The onboarding was really smooth and the orientations were informative, to know about ZS and the culture at ZS. So yeah, it has been good so far. And talking about the work, I really haven't started with a lot of work on my project because currently we are undergoing few trainings. Okay, so that's why like the work hasn't properly started for me yet. But yeah, overall experience so far has been really great at ZS.
And was ZS the only company that you had applied to, or my basic question is, had you applied to some other companies, or were you selected at other companies as well? And why did you really choose ZS out of them if you were selected at other companies?
Okay, so prior to ZS, I had been I had received an offer from DXC Technology as software engineer. So it's a service-based firm and it's a massive company. It's a renowned company all over the world. But yeah, the package was quite low, just like any other service company. And apart from that, I had an offer from a startup as well as a data analyst. It was a startup that had recently received great funding, so they were providing quite a good stipend and a pretty decent package as well. So I was actually confused between the startup and ZS, like which one I should choose, and I chose ZS for a few of my personal reasons and my discussions with family and friends. And apart from that, I have been rejected in various company, even at the basic aptitude rounds. In some of in 2-3 of them, I proceeded to um, first interview round or so, and I couldn't clear. So yeah, I have given other interviews and I have faced rejections in many companies in which I were applying off campus. I didn't receive even the rejection mail or receive anything at all. So yeah, the journey of the placements is actually tough. Finding a job is tough, but it's not impossible. And ultimately, when you get a good job, the satisfaction is really nice. And whenever you see your family smile and be happy and proud of yourself, so that's really great to see. So the journey has been really great in my opinion, from being a person who had physical education prior to college and had no knowledge about computer science in general. Like I had interest, but I didn't have any knowledge or proper guidance. So yeah, from there to finally being a ZSer, it has been a great journey, and I'm really glad to be here sharing my experience. And I really hope again that this experience really helps a lot of people to become a ZSer, and I'm looking forward to connect with them.
That's really amazing to hear, and thank you so much, Saj, for being here and giving all the knowledge and sharing your experience and your preparation techniques and tips and tricks. So thanks a lot again, and I really hope this helps a lot of people. Yeah.
All right, it's a pleasure to be here, Sahaj. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me here.
And for the viewers, I really hope you enjoyed this session, our podcast. And if you really want to see more of such stuff, then please do like this video, give it a thumbs up, and just subscribe the channel, share on comments how you felt about this experience and how you felt about this whole video. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching.